Childish Gambino's Because the Internet is one of the most odd and fascinating releases that came out of the 2010s. This album has such a unique way of presenting itself with its concepts and meanings that I've never seen another album do, honestly. Just from its rollout, Gambino created a rollout similar to an overload of information, like the internet itself. Tweets, short films, music videos, odd interviews.
It's like, if I want to kill myself, I will. It's not hard to die. I could do it like right now.
Like, who says that? There was even notes that he posted on his Instagram leading us to think that Donald is not in the best mindset right now. In fact, this whole record was made in the middle of an existential crisis, and it shows in the songs where Donald is crafting a story, projecting himself as the main character, the boy, a rich young man whose strange relationship with the internet will throw him in a downward spiral in search of anything to cling on to in order to find who he is. However, this story is nowhere to be seen in the album. If you listen to Because the Internet, there's a few narrative points you can decipher, but nothing concrete, which always surprised me given it's obviously a concept album. But that's because the album is incomplete without the screenplay it's attached to. A 72-page screenplay released 4 days before the album, with instructions as to where and when the reader should play songs from the album, just to realize that the album that's about to come out is not just a concept album. This album is just a soundtrack to a movie that's never been made. Because the Internet starts off with a mysterious 4-second intro titled The Library, followed immediately by Crawl, which starts off the main story of the album. This weird first track of the album does have a few interesting things attached to it, but if we want to start in the simplest way, this story starts off with a boy in his room, and the only thing we can hear in the music is violence. The reason we know where the boy is without having heard a word yet is because of the screenplay, containing dialogues, descriptions, and even some links to short 30-second scenes that were filmed to illustrate the screenplay. Nowhere near a full movie, but for example, we do get to see the computer screen of the boy showing us the kind of stuff he watches on the internet.
Rec league, I ain't paying a bar.
The first words the boy says on the album is, "Who am I?" And that's fitting because we don't really know who he is, apart from the fact he has a room, a pool, and watches weird shit on the internet. We need context, which is great because that's the first thing the screenplay tells us. Go watch the prelude to the screenplay available on YouTube. It's called Clapping for the Wrong Reasons. It's basically a short film of the boy's daily routine, where we see he lives in a mansion, where there's always random people around his house he doesn't know.
Who are you?
Has strange conversations, makes music that's on because the internet, which we're listening to right now. It could basically be what's happened every day prior to this story, or what Donald Glover did from 2012 to 2013, where he rented the same exact mansion to record Because the Internet in, with the same people in the video. See, there's a really interesting aspect that is omnipresent during the entirety of Because the Internet, and that's the barrier between real and fake, Donald Glover and the boy. It's basically non-existent. This movie is a fictional context for the album, but it's also the context in which it was recorded. The interviews Donald gave for this album were him, but he was playing the boy's character, even wearing the boy's clothes and giving answers that the boy would give. It's like there's no line between the author and the character, even though it is a screenplay fiction, right? Like, Rick Ross is clearly not Donald Glover's father. So now, who am I takes an entirely different meaning. It's a question that Donald and the boy are asking themselves simultaneously. But anyway, the first verse on Crawl introduces the character of the boy, and especially his rich lifestyle. It doesn't take a long look at the lyrics to just figure out it's about drugs, money, and girls. We also learn the boy's job, in a way, which is nothing. In fact, he has a Twitter account named The Gold Molar with a decent following where he trolls people, kind of like he did in the prelude. And as his father is rich, he doesn't need to do anything else.
Old money, look, no money, don't do it. I'm only looking back if I'm looking at her booty. At her booty.
This song, along with the story and the screenplay, is such a materialistic look and braggadocious piece on the boy's life, and it's so different than what the chorus is saying. It's like, even though you got a lifestyle people are dreaming of, I bet you're crawling all alone. Which right now is not really true. He went out surfing, invited a girl to his party, she's coming, right? What could go wrong? World Star is the second and final song of the first act, and it's taking place right before the party planned at the boys' mansion tonight. But before they actually get to the party,
Blow out World Star before rap. You already know that.
with Bino bragging about how everybody knew him from Community before his rap career, and once again highlighting the boy and Donald Glover are kind of the same. World Star is not just relating to Donald Glover's career, but also to World Star hip-hop, a site the boy has been on multiple times where a lot of violent videos are uploaded.
I'm more or less individual, making movies with criminals, trying to get them residuals.
And the boy says he's a part of that, making movies with criminals, filming fights and uploading them to those websites to get fame and views.
When it all go crazy, when I hear that action, I'ma be Scorsese.
The way he shamelessly brags about it tells us a lot about the boy's view on all of this. Like, it's kinda sad, but he doesn't give a single shit about it.
Yeah, motherfucker, take your phone out to record this, and nobody can ignore this.
But back then, when somebody filmed a fight, people around usually screamed World Star because it was gonna go on the website. But why is he even mentioning it if nothing?
Yo, bro, man, check out that video I just sent you, man. It's like this kid, man, he got like, he gets like hit on the side of the head, man. He's like freaking out.
During that stop at a random club while waiting for his friend, the boy witnesses a fight that turns into murder. And what he was so used to watching on the internet, he now experienced it for real. He even realizes he has a bullet hole in his jacket, and he can't stop fiddling with it. It might surprise you that this is what actually happens on this album, because this is said nowhere in the song, only on the screenplay. And when I read this, I knew I had to make this into a video, because this album is totally not what it seems and has so much more lying underneath its surface. This event is one of the most important ones in the story, because it was a near-death experience for the boy. And yes, he was exposed to that same kind of violence on Crawl especially, but when you're actually experiencing it, who knows what's actually going through your head? His friends are disconnected from that, but it's the start of the boy's reflection on himself and what his life is worth. The boy doesn't want to be on World Star Hip Hop, one of those videos, yet his job is to repost these videos and troll just to be a world star. It's like at that age, he finally understands the irony and thinks to himself, what the fuck am I doing with my life? These were scenes from the very first pages of the screenplay, which take place 15 years before the events in WorldStar. These scenes would also be associated with the track The Library, a 4-second track that kicks off the album. But now, why does it start on a bus and in this context? The thing that's interesting is that this prelude is a direct continuation of the last track from Childish Gambino's Camp album, That Power, where while riding back from summer camp asks a girl to go out with him, only to get rejected and laughed at.
The truth is I got on the bus a boy, and I never got off the bus. I still haven't.
And that's setting the context perfectly for this album, where Gambino plays himself, a lost, rich, childish boy who grows up watching fight videos and trolling for fun online. But 15 years later, it feels different. Dial Up is our first of 3 interludes that separate the different acts of this record. The first thing you notice when looking at the track list of the album is the Roman numerals, which in a way makes the songs chapters and groups of chapters acts, separated by musical interludes, which is pretty fitting considering this album is like a movie, following a 5-act story structure. If Act 1 was all about violence and carelessness, then Act 2 is all about change and hope before a downward spiral. Dial Up is only an instrumental, But this scene tells us that the boy is deeply affected by what just happened. And to me, this is the first song where we can see the existential crisis that will affect the boy throughout the album. Traumatic events are among the many triggers of an existential crisis, and many people experience it differently. It may be a perceived lack of meaning to your life and what you've done. It may be a fear of death or a fear of loneliness. It seems like the spiders in the scene are existential thoughts he's anxious about, like who he is, where are you, questions that he can't get out of his head after that event on Worldstar, questioning his very existence after almost dying. However, there's no time for that anymore, because there's a party to host, remember?
All she needed was some. All she needed was some. All she needed.
The party that has been planned since Crawl is finally happening at the boys' mansion, which will be the main focus point in The Worst Guys, a song featuring Chance the Rapper, which in that case is playing Marcus, one of the boys' friends. And you'll see there's a couple times on this album the actual features are characters in the screenplay, which makes it so it's not just the boy who breaks that barrier, like previously said. And at first, everything seems to be going fine, where our guys are really acting like the worst guys you can find at a party.
You see you go home, Roger.
Go home, Roger.
Tears mirror in my bed. I'm a smart guy.
Honestly, not surprising, given the carelessness of the boy and his friends up until this point. But when you remember there's a murder that just happened, there's something hiding. To me, this song is the perfect example of what happens after an event like this, where you try to move on with your life like nothing happened, but there is still this tiny thought in your mind that something feels off.
The girls that you brought, man, where are they from? Where are they from? No, this ain't a vacation. This is my house, my house. All you needed was some.
The chorus is pretty simple, maybe a bit too simple given it could mean like anything. All she needed was some. Apparently that hook was really just something Chance the Rapper said for no reason while recording the song, but it's still a question Childish Gambino himself asks on his website. What did she need? A picture of the devil, your keys, some dick, or something to understand? Stick around to the end of this video and drop a like for the answer. No, I'm kidding. This song is also one of the tracks that has a music video for it, which might look familiar because it's very similar to the events described in Crawl. His friends and a couple girls surfing, having fun on the beach, nothing out of place. Except one thing. Could this be the aliens planting their mark on a human host to take over the world? Listen, I'm not the one looking silly right now. You are. I'm gonna blow your mind with this theory. Up until this point, this song has been a frat boy anthem. Nothing surprising. But from the second verse, something changes in the boy.
Man, I hate y'all. You only come around when you wanna play pool on my hot tub.
It's like this event in Worldstar, the moment of reflection on Dial-Up, and the events of the party make him more aware of the world around him, realizing his friends are kind of leeching off of him because he's too careless to mind.
But afterwards it was awkward as fuck, cause I'm nervous as fuck. We could not get it up.
This scene is weird because it's not the boy we were introduced to in the first act. There's no joy in doing parties and inviting girls anymore. He doesn't feel like his friends are actual friends. Everything just feels wrong.
On my porch smoking vapor, hit with the Sunday paper, listening to the neighbors.
This whole party makes it so that from the perspective of the boy and us, there's a sense of absurdity to life. The world around us is weird. People are careless. Girls are straight up groping you. It could maybe illustrate how the internet the boy described in earlier songs changes people, but I think it's more about showing us the boy sees the world like nothing makes sense anymore. Like it's all just a joke.
Love me better, kiss me back, listen more.
Shadows is one of the more mellow cuts on the album and is a rather simple song to understand. The song takes place right after the boy's uncomfortable scene, to say the least, and none other than his ex-girlfriend, Vanessa, comes right after. He says it's his ex-girlfriend, but apparently they're still together. Something that's not surprising for the boy. He would for sure be the one to keep a girlfriend while seeing other girls. But anyway, the chorus of Shadows is from the perspective of Vanessa, asking the boy to be more involved in their relationship.
Listen more.
You know, good communication. But we know the boy is more aware of people around him now, and starts doubting if they're really there for the boy or just for his money.
And if I'm dead to the world, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
I can't remember.
Bino's verse on this song can be compared to a thought process, asking himself if he should stay with that ex-girlfriend or not.
Pop pills at the Coachella. The fear that I feel, man, it might kill her. Man, it might kill her.
Remembering good memories with that person, but slowly starting to think there might not even be a relationship there in the first place.
We ain't speaking. Okay. We ain't speaking now.
Shadows ends with the boy breaking up with Vanessa, or breaking up with what was left of their relationship. It's not clear how the boy felt about that. The next section of the script is literally just him being eaten by wolves before realizing he was imagining that part. But what's certain is the boy does have something else on his mind. Telegraph is among the most interesting songs on this record, and one of my favorites, because it's kind of a song into a song. As he starts the car, there's this song playing about someone driving to their significant other who's far away in Oakland, and that lover is basically waiting for you to arrive. It's really cute.
Now I'm driving up the 5 and she waits till I arrive in Oakland.
Something the boy can relate to, because that's exactly what he's doing. Going back to someone he once loved in order to find meaning or something to do other than all this bullshit. And for now, he completely devotes himself to that.
On the gas, I'm just trying to pass all the red lights.
One thing that's really done well in this song is that fantasy of imagining performing a song in your head while you're just driving. You're feeling it so much, but it's just you singing it in the car. And you can tell the boy is so desperate for meaning right now because he just keeps adding on to that fantasy he's driving towards. When he's gonna get there in Oakland, he's gonna get married, have kids, and finally be happy.
And I'm nervous, truth be told, I never saw me growing old in Oakland.
The boy is completely convinced that a new life is starting tonight for him in Oakland.
Can we just roll for a minute? Can we just roll for a minute? Wait a minute.
On this song, Bino also talks about the impact of the internet on love relationships.
2 dates and you still wanna get it in. And they saying it's because of the internet. Try once and it's on to the next shit.
These days, the internet is so fast-paced. You go from content to content so easily now, and Bino says that might impact how you see girls, for example. For some, it might just be like content or entertainment. You constantly move on to the next one. And that's maybe something Bino is trying to change here.
Weeks in Dubai, 4th of July, house in Kauai, yeah, we can try.
All that's left to do for the boy is simply to grab that chance and go for it.
I took off my 9 to 5, but you still don't have the time to.
For a brief second, he forgot everything, because he knew a lover was waiting for him at the end of this trip. But as soon as the song is over, he's brought back to reality. The girl he once loved wants nothing to do with him. He drove up all the way to Oakland for someone who's never been waiting for him in the first place. Sweatpants is one of the bangers on this album and really fits the vibe of the screenplay. It's like after being rejected by Nyla on Telegraph, he seemingly gets back to his careless mindset he always had.
Rich kid asshole, paint me as a villain.
The title, Sweatpants, apparently refers to the fact that rich people can wear whatever the hell they want. And looking at these lyrics, it really feels like he's in a defense mechanism mode. He's like, nothing affects me and everybody wants to be me in this absurd braggadocious verse.
Don't be mad 'cause I'm doing me better than you doing you.
Like, if you told me this song was placed in the beginning of the album where everything was still fine, I'd believe you. But there's a couple things that show us that the boy is not really being himself on this song, that it's all a facade, like the video for this track, one of the few music videos that I have engraved in my mind with how great it fucking is. A video in which the boy seems to be simply eating with his friends in a diner, until he realizes he's stuck in a loop, doing the same things over and over again, and every time he starts it again, something has changed. His friends become him, and eventually everybody in the diner becomes him. And while at first glance it just seems like a dope music video thing to do, this video shows perfectly the boy's situation in the story, with him hiding behind this facade of "I'm so cool" and everything is fine, while he's confronted over and over again by none other than himself. This moment alone would convince anyone that the boy is not mentally stable right now, going as far as to threaten a kid over not knowing the meaning of an internet meme. That's how desperate for meaning the boy is right now. Nothing makes sense anymore, so why wouldn't the answer that solves all his insecurities be hidden in this?
Why? Don't be mad cause I'm doing me better than you doing you. Better than you doing you. Fuck it, what you gonna?
3005 is one of the more outcast songs of the album, and that's because there's no narrative elements tied to it. It's more like one of the first happy thoughts the boy has on the record.
No matter what you say, what you do, when I'm alone, I'd rather be with you.
At first, it really feels like a love song, but there's no love interest. It's actually more about the boy imagining a love story until the end of time. Stumbling upon this random wedding at the end of Sweatpants on the screenplay gives him a glimpse of what a happy life could be, away from all the parties and doing nothing all day.
Hold up, wait a minute, all good just a week ago. Crew at my house and we party every weekend.
A week ago, the boy was perfectly fine, but ever since that event, he began feeling out of place.
Got a house full of homies, why I feel so the opposite, incompetent.
Going as far as to say that even though he's surrounded by a lot of people, he feels alone. In our modern age of the internet, we are more connected while being more alone than ever before.
Sorry, I'm just scared of the future. Till 2005, I got your back, we can do this.
Donald said himself about the song in an interview.
It's kind of an existential thing. When I was little, there was a big dog down the street, and I was really scared of it, but like when I was with my sister, when I knew I had to protect her, like I wasn't afraid of the dog as much, because I was just like, somebody was there, like I had a purpose.
In a way, this song summarizes the whole album up until this point. The boy is in the middle of an existential crisis. He's scared of being alone, and the only thing that will take away that fear is him having a purpose. The video for 3005 is also a pretty interesting one, kind of similar to the Sweatpants video, in the sense that it seems very simple at first, but when you look closer, things start changing and moving time-wise. The teddy bear becomes older, a couple in the back becomes older and dies, but also aliens. I told you this would be bad! In the video for The Worst Guys, we had the alien mark, Patient Zero. On the video for Telegraph, we get this scene.
You gotta leave.
And on 3005, we get the world burning down, basically crafting the story of aliens infecting a host to take over the Earth. And on top of that, you might notice I didn't really mention the script for 3005 for the analysis of the song. And that's because it's basically little humanoid creatures that come out of hiding to celebrate the wedding with the people. And they simply leave the room saying, "We did it. Yay." And that concludes the Because the Internet alien theory. I missed a few things, but anyway, this is just to show how much things there are to this album. Gambino wants us searching for what the hell this all means. It's about aliens, but no, it's about the internet, and there's a secret track hidden in the screenplay. Metaphorical wolves attack the boy on Shadows, and he talks to fucking spiders on Dial-Up. By overloading the listener with contradicting information, Bino crafted a search for meaning that mirrors the boy's search for meaning in the story. We're looking at an enormous amount of contradicting info to find the meaning of this album, exactly like you would try and find the meaning to life. This concludes the second act of Because the Internet, where, when you think about it, the boy has done a lot of growth. He started doubting why he hangs with some people, tried to find purpose, but my favorite moment is hidden in the screenplay. Instead of pulling out his phone to film violence, this time he pulls out his phone to film a wedding, someone's happiest day of their life, telling us that perhaps the boy really does want to grow up. The interlude separating Act 2 from Act 3 is a breath of fresh air. Even though the boy is back to square one after that trip to Oakland, he's rather calm and soothed. He starts thinking about when he was still a kid, sliding on the floors of the house. He remembers he could slide from the living room all the way to the kitchen when it was clean and slippery. But that's only for a brief moment, because he can't do it anymore. There's dried alcohol all over the floor. Ever since the start of the album, the boy always had highs and lows, but one day it's about to break, right? If Act 2 is about growth, Act 3 is the fall itself. The Party is a short and simple track. It's the same thing, again, and at first, the boy seems to try to motivate himself to keep going. All my friends will be there. This first verse feels dreamy. It's like a voice inside the boy's head that says to just let go and have fun for another party.
Thought I was done, but that wasn't the case.
And for a minute, he seems to be fine with it and go along.
Buddha's got bottles and bottles and bottles of Greeno. Saw I was rich, now they fucking with Bino.
But then, the boy feels alone for the majority of the album, but on No Exit, this is the track where the boy is finally alone.
Can't sleep. Stare at the ceiling, murder the feeling, spider crawling the corner, brown recluse.
The song has such a darker and more claustrophobic tone than any other one. You can tell from the screenplay, where the boy spots a spider in the corner of his room and spends an entire paragraph describing how he can hear noises the spider makes until it becomes the only thing he can hear, this loud, unbearable noise. With the boy truly left by himself after the party, it really feels like he's high, having a bad trip just by the way he talks.
Look at my feet, I put my sneakers in the trunk. Pass a fat burger through Atwater Village, laugh for a minute, couldn't cry for the life of me.
This last line is powerful, really illustrating the state of mind of the boy right now. He's so numb, he can't bring himself to shed a single tear. It's kind of crazy to think how low we are right now. Remember, the problem why we're here is that he can't find meaning to his life. He can't find the point. It's like we have a character plopped in a screenplay and he panics because he doesn't know why he's here or where he's going.
What's wrong? Didn't respond when I texted you last night. You alright? Yeah.
The boy is not okay, and Donald neither. In fact, our author starts to talk in first person here. I'm not sure where he's driving. He's not sure where he's driving. It's like he's confusing his identity with the boy. There are many ways we can take this, but to me it really feels like it's about the alienation the boy feels right now and the loneliness that comes with it. But the song just keeps descending more and more into insanity.
Man is a star bound to a body inside of me, 20 million degrees, burn a man to his knees.
A way to make sense of this madness on No Exit would be with the spiders from Dial Up, which represent his thoughts and questions about his existence. And on No Exit, these thoughts, aka the spider in the corner, are becoming so loud, and the only thing he can think about, the only solution he has, is to try and kill it.
I'm in a good mood, so good I'm gonna kill that spider.
It's like the boy separates his existential crisis from himself. It's not me, it's these fucking spiders that are causing it. All I need to do is to get rid of it.
Look at the recluse, the recluse. Look at the recluse. Look at the recluse.
Death by Numbers is our third interlude on the album, which gives us an eerie guitar and vocal performance from Bino and not much else. The page for this song on the screenplay is completely empty, and the lyrics repeat the same thing over and over. Death by Numbers is a fitting title because all the tracks of the next act will be about death, which makes this entire act a sort of exploration of death. The first death explored is the death of the boy. Flight of the Navigator starts with a monologue from the boy, describing a dream he supposedly had, a dream where everything was perfect, where he fell in love again, where he finally felt happy, talking about it like an out-of-body experience.
Even when you were sad, you were really happy. It became the same.
We learned the boy attempted suicide on No Exit, most likely using drug overdose, which explains the boy's paranoia on the end of the song, but also the first verse of this song, probably being the experience of the boy while being in a coma.
When you're not inside the darkness, it's hard to see.
Flight of the Navigator is one of the most heart-wrenching songs on this album. It really puts in perspective the value of life and the ones around us. In a 2013 interview with Vice, he details how badly the realization of his own inevitable death affected him. But I was waking up screaming sometimes because I knew I was gonna die. And if I knew that it was just like this guy from Community died, I'd be really disappointed. I'd feel guilty that I didn't do anything for us, for humans. Why even bother going on if we're just gonna die, right? It's a sad thought, but I feel like it's one that all of us have or will experience at some point, because death or not existing is a terrifying thought, and it can impact how you live your life currently, but we should always remember that we're not alone in this.
Just hold me close, my darling.
The people around us, the love that we have for them and that they have for us, is so much stronger than any other fear or thought. I think the ending of this song is hopeful, because when you feel like nothing matters, it might take some time, but there will always be someone that takes you out of it.
Just hold me close, my darling.
Zealots of Stockholm starts with the sound of bells ringing far in the distance, symbolizing the death of the boy's father. If you're kind of shocked that this comes out of nowhere, it's because the boy is too. Not only it comes out of nowhere, but the boy has barely any connection to his father. The only interaction he has with them in the screenplay is when the boy is still a kid, and the first verse acknowledges that.
Now everything is broken. I'm a good son.
It comes off as a bit sarcastic in a way, because the boy barely knows or cares about his father, but he might say he's a good son because he's flying to Stockholm to pick over his ashes since he died there.
Orlando, hotel to the bar, young girl with an accent with a backband, ass out to the whole world.
As the boy is by himself in Stockholm and doesn't know anyone in the country, it's no surprise that he seeks company. And even less surprising when you consider this fear of loneliness that grew massively for the boy, especially in the last song. So he decides to hang out with a random follower on Twitter that seems to be there only as a mean to get away from her boyfriend.
I'ma walk out, wanna walk too? What about dude? I just really wanna feel something.
Ern wraps up the fourth act of Because the Internet in a serene and calm manner. Throughout this act, we've explored death in many different ways, whether it's the fear of it, being confronted to it directly or not, but on this song, it's more about its acceptance.
Let me hold in my arms forevermore.
Even though the boy never had a close relationship to his father, the boy still holds on to it because it's what makes him still a boy, having a father. Now, he can't just party every night and not worry about life and money. He's gotta have responsibilities now.
Don't ever limit my life. Keep on my.
But now, it's a sign he has to grow up. He's not really affected by the death of his father, but he's scared of leaving the comfort of this situation, of having a father and being a boy. After almost losing his life, facing his fear of death, and now his father, it feels the same. And this seems like the moment where the boy is not afraid of death anymore.
I'm not afraid of him, 'cause I won't know.
It's the boy finally becoming a man because he has to.
Rainbows, sunshine.
Pink Toes is certainly a change of pace, because it's getting back to that hopefulness of 3005, but this time it's not just thinking about falling in love, it's actually doing it.
Rainbows, sunshine.
The screenplay only has one scene for that track, which we'll get to, but before that scene, it's simply a few paragraphs saying this is the part where they fall in love. It's not necessarily a perfect love, but they're happy.
I thought I told you about it. Act like you know.
It's kinda odd that the only part in the script where the boy is seemingly happy and in love is in a way redacted, in the sense that we don't even get to imagine what it would look like to see the boy happy. But the song goes into more detail about it and what the boy is up to at that part of his life, basically selling drugs.
You don't leave home without it. Move that kilo.
Since his father is not there anymore to pay the bills and he had a lot of debt, the boy starts taking responsibility in a way, moving drugs like cocaine and LSD from his mansion directly, which also gives a double meaning to that chorus about rainbows and sunshine, tying it with hallucinations that you would get from those drugs.
The who, what, why, and where they sport the flyest pair. She got the nicest hair and she know life is better with this.
This song has a feature as well from Jhené Aiko, which in the screenplay is attributed to the character of Naomi, which gives us her point of view as well on the relationship.
Every day, 20K, yeah. At the very least.
After everything that's happened in this movie, I'm looking for a sign that something's wrong, but it really seems like a good ending is coming for the boy.
I know one day you could take me away.
They even have a purpose now, make enough money from drugs to go live far away. It is better with this girl, there's no denying it, but it's like it's too good to be true. That big ass text tells us it's not even worth mentioning their happy relationship up until this point, which is kind of weird. And then we get that scene. On Earth, the oldest computer, it seems like the boy's shady business has finally caught up to him. With those guys coming out of nowhere with the only interest they have being the boy's drugs, the boy really thinks, at that point, this is it.
Maybe it's the last night.
When the world was assigned with this and that.
It's like as soon as he takes control of his life, gets through this whole journey of finding himself, he just lost complete control, is all alone, and it might be his last night on Earth.
I was young, didn't know to hold it back. Now we here in the world, something else. We were gods, nobody was above me.
The title of the song is goddamn long and means a lot in this context. Obviously, the last night refers to the fact that the boy truly thinks he is gonna die right now. And the first verse comes off as a bit of a reaction to that. And this part, Earth, the oldest computer, is explained better in the second verse.
When I step on it and on the grass, progress only thing that'll last.
An existential thought that when a person dies, the only thing that's left behind and is permanent is progress, because that's what we evolved and build on as a species. From billions of human beings that have lived and died on this planet, we've built up the largest database we could ever imagine. Earth is the oldest computer. And now we're at a point where in the script it's starting to make less and less sense. Now Donald is just giving us what he would do if he was the director of this movie, which he is. Oh, it's like Tony Montana, but resigned and frankly more realistic, because it's boring. Everybody dies. There's no narrative sense anymore. It's like we're reading his thought process.
She got that body. Oh me, oh my.
And towards the end of the song, we get a couple really interesting lyrics, because they're really not on theme here. I've seen a few theories on that part, and considering the boy's situation, some think it's the boy's life flashing before his eyes, which is something to think about, because the only thing he seemed to ever care for was the internet, violence, sexuality, the only things prior to Naomi that really made him feel things. And perhaps it's the only thing he can think about before dying. What you just saw was the end of the screenplay. After that, it tells you to play the final song of the album and shows us a classic, The End. This is one of the most surprising and what the fuck endings to a record I've ever seen, because this is really the death of the main character, which of course makes you wonder, what was it even for? During my research for this video, I've seen a lot of theories end there and say, this album is unintelligible and is about the meaningless of it all, and it's because the internet. I've even had like comments say that when I announced this video. To me, that doesn't make sense, and I feel like it's kind of a lazy way to brush off this album instead of trying to figure it out. And it's totally not because I animated a whole fucking movie and I don't want it to be for nothing. No. I feel like we're missing one crucial part of the puzzle, which lies in this track.
Man made the web, you don't need a name.
At that point, the boy is gone, dead, and the only one that remains is Donald Glover, even being credited as a feature on this track. This song, I like to imagine it as the credits of the album, and firstly, we get a resume of the events that occurred.
Every thought I had, put it in a box.
Of course, talking about the boy's Twitter, where he just trolled for most of his life. But as the song goes on, of course, the blending of Donald Glover and Bino just doubles.
Where's the line between Donnie G and Gambino?
Himself saying it. Where the hell is the line? And perhaps there's maybe not that much of a line, because Donald starts incorporating elements from his own life.
The sauce was so malo, and then she said, you need to grow up.
This is of course a line relating to what Nyla said on Telegraph in the story, but then he follows it up with something the boy would never say.
And I could have stayed where I was and had a life you'd be proud of.
Connecting bits of the story of the boy with events that are clearly about Donald Glover, it's like the line slowly peels off to show us what actually took place during the recording of this album. Him saying he'd rather chase things never thought of rather than stay in that lane, write a screenplay, make another album. But that's when he began feeling scared.
Panic dreams, so it seems we're meant to die. Had to figure it out, it's the best, no that's a lie.
At first you have the realization, oh shit, I'm gonna die. The wave of fear climbs, you go on the internet and find a random comment on Reddit saying, it's the best, it's what gives life meaning. And I mean, sure, but in that moment, you're scared, it doesn't help. So what does he do to solve it?
Had to get some stuff off my chest, I vaporized.
You get it out, talk to someone, get it on a track, vent. But when you leave a successful TV show to do rap, there's gonna be some doubts and doubters here and there.
I just got the motivation, your talents just bunch of luck.
And it's so exhausting when nobody believes in you.
Waking up in these places I don't remember. Texting people I never met. Doors left open. I don't know who I am anymore. Still on the beat though.
But you get back on it. If life laughs at you, laugh back at it. You might still think about it every once in a while, but the important is to keep going on because you never know what could happen.
This girl at a dinner, we conversating. She beautiful in the face, but her voice is truly amazing. Plus
Love is so powerful and it could get you out of anything. With that girl, it helps him move on. Especially because she feels the same as him.
she said she feel alone all the time. I'm similar.
This is just something that everybody goes through in their life. This is what actually happens in real life. You're not killed immediately after getting over an existential crisis. I mean, you'd be pretty unlucky if that happened, but for Donald, he keeps moving on. But by still keeping these thoughts in mind, the 4 last bars on the album sums it up extremely well.
We were childish but had to grow up.
When you need to grow up, you gain responsibilities and face realities. And it only takes an event, a realization, a breakup to make you realize life is not just granted.
When you spitting real shit, eventually you grow up.
And as you go over these existential thoughts, this real shit, eventually you fall. It's too much to take. You start to think life is meaningless.
Realities like allergies, I'm afraid to go nuts.
And then you get out of it, and being aware of those realities might make you afraid to face them and drive yourself crazy with it. Life has good and bad parts. You only have to grow up if you want. You can choose to stay innocent, like a child, wall off these thoughts, or you can choose to live with them. But either way, that won't change the fact that life is playing a joke on all of us.
Like the biggest troll, but the joke is on us. Yeah, the jokes you showed up.
Out of all the trolls on the internet, life is the biggest troll. It gave you a brain, a conscience, to torment yourself about why you're here in the first place. At the end of the day, you're trolling yourself.
You're here now. You have to help me.
The album ends with Donald pleading us to help him, not in the kind of way he personally needs help, but in a more generalized way. We're all here together. We're all experiencing the same thoughts and questions, so we should help each other. But the album still ends abruptly with the same noise with which it started. It seems like there's a sense of repetition that the album wants to convey, and it makes sense with a scene in the screenplay where Naomi talks about how hell is just life on repeat. It's like it's again a slap in the face, telling us, well, it's a loop. Nothing matters. People are just born again and again to die again and again. And now I've spent way too much time looking at stuff about this album, and I'm about to get an existential crisis trying to find something to cling onto on this goddamn album. But what if that's the point? The boy is going through an existential crisis, which is more common than ever with the internet, making us more connected while isolating us. But it's pretty meta too, because the author of the story, Donald Glover, is going through an existential crisis too. It's an existential crisis in an existential crisis. His story that he writes ends with the boy overcoming his crisis in Earn and falling in love, but then suddenly dying. It's like the author starts thinking it's all meaningless. He starts writing his train of thought instead, and it makes even more sense when you consider Atlanta, Donald Glover's show that is extremely similar to this kind of screenplay. I like to imagine Donald started writing an episode or a movie in the style of Atlanta and gave up halfway through. What the fuck does it matter if a random boy has an event that traumatizes him, begins feeling bad and having depressive thoughts, and overcomes these thoughts? He's gonna die anyway. Why does it matter I finish this story? Donald is stuck in a loop of existential thoughts. And on top of that, Donald creates a multimedia experience that goes beyond just an album, a whole library of data that is almost impossible to connect all together with theories ranging from aliens to fucking wolves. How does that make any sense? Which prompts us as humans, and of course me, to search for meaning, figure out what all this means, until I realize he's doing it to us! He's trolling us. It all makes sense now. It's life. He's simulating the search for meaning in life. This man made an interactive experience to simulate what it's like to search for meaning for something that doesn't have any. Because the internet is a glorified search for meaning that never ends. The whole experience is exactly what it feels like to be in the middle of an existential crisis and think that no matter what story you imagine in your head to get you out of this, it doesn't matter. That's the message the album conveys. But that message is not true. Look at Donald now. He made the show he wanted, starred in a fucking Star Wars, and made more incredible albums. An existential crisis is temporary. Time heals literally everything. But it's still interesting to have a glimpse in the mind of a guy like Donald Glover during those bad times of his life. Which brings us down to the final boss in this probably way too long video. What in the fuck is Roscoe's wetsuit? I may have found a comment, and I think it sums it up pretty well. You don't have to know why you enjoy a wetsuit to enjoy it. I mean, you go out to the beach, the water's cold as shit, you're so happy to have your wetsuit on so you can have fun in the water. Do you need to know what your wetsuit is made out of down to the atoms and chemicals in it? No. Do you need to know where your wetsuit came from or how it came into existence? No. You just enjoy your wetsuit because it's a fucking wetsuit. You don't have to know why you enjoy a wetsuit to enjoy it. You can just enjoy it.